Hey everyone, I'm Simone. I'm here with John Rhodes and Bella Krystal, and we are in our sixth episode of Architecture of the Soul. So, if you remember, John's work is Science of Ascension and Awakening the Heart, and Bella Krystal's work is The Living Matrix, Unlock Your Design, and Conscious Connection. And I'm your resident soul communicator. So, John Bell and I started this series because we wanted to have the conversation that we could have around our dining room tables about consciousness and about soul architecture. And we have had such a blast talking with you. And if you've watched our other episodes, you know that we have done soul communication with the density of consciousness called the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimension of consciousness, working as a group as a density of consciousness. And it's been super fun. Tonight, we have something super exciting to me. John had this mystical experience on a mountain, and he would like to talk to his soul about it. Now, I have not heard anything about his mystical experience, just that he had one. And so tonight we're going to do a soul communication with John Rhodes' soul and see what his soul has to say about this mystical experience, and see what other wisdom we can bring through. So we're super excited, and you guys get to witness me doing a soul communication with a person. So here we go. I would like to communicate with the soul of John Rhodes for the purpose of healing and communion with John's soul. John's soul, will you communicate with me, please? Of course I will. And he shows up. It reminds me of a picture of a chalice. It was like a beam of light straight up, and then a sun around that beam of light. Really beautiful. And I have the energy of that image rising up. And as I watch it rising up, I saw the words union and communion. And what I feel in my body is that your soul is coming into embodiment with you. Because as it rose up, I felt it rising up in my body, in your body, and I saw it in your body. And as it rises up into your body and almost overlays with, now I understand the image a little bit more, right? A beam of light with a circle. And then as I just saw that, it kind of came into alignment with your body. After I said, oh, it feels in my body and your body like it's coming into alignment, I saw that. And as it almost like synced, your soul synced in with you, what happened was I'm in your body and I'm looking around and I can see so much more. It's like you have been stripped of blinders, of perceptions, of points of view, and you can see, I want to say infinitely, but it's like you can just see what it looks like. The way the pictures he's using is like this amazing grassy plain that goes forever and ever. And the feeling as I look across that grassy plain is peace, and the peace that only comes with union, with wholeness. There is no scarcity. There is no scarcity of thought. There is such a purity of consciousness that it feels like a laser that can see a speck of dust and infinity all at once. And he's showing me this picture of, like, lasers that engrave steel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. And this is part of what happens with soul communication. I don't edit anything. So I may not understand why I'm seeing a laser that cuts steel, but I give it to you because you'll know what to do with that. Like I don't have to know. My job is just to communicate and not to have a point of view about it. And it's like as the laser cutter is cutting through steel, I'm seeing through to the other side. And again, it's like opening up all these worlds through this precision laser cut, and I see to the other side, and I'm back in the plane. I see the plane again, and it's really amazing. And now your soul brought his hands like to his heart, almost like offering his heart, the heart of your soul, to you on a platter, by just like holding his heart and offering it to you. And he's saying something about there's even so much more. And it's like you're walking through a house right now, and you're going through rooms and closets, and you're moving things, and you can see inside this house, inside these closets, things that you've never seen before. And some of what you see looks archaic. Like, why do I even have this? It's archaic. I don't, like, so it's like you're going through the house and you're just kind of clearing out. And it's almost like you're clearing out to the studs, to the very studs. And he says that, he brings me back to this image where he has his hands underneath his heart, literally holding his heart on a platter for you. And he says, your heart, it's almost like you're in a fractal, and your heart is just opening up in a new way, in ways that you've never, even imagined. And it's so beautiful, the stripping down. And it's like kind of a quantum leap of consciousness of the heart that you will experience. Like if you had scrubbed your heart clean and you thought you had your heart at the highest vibration, quantum leap that. And now you have a beginning understanding of what's possible with and through your heart here in Earth consciousness. And but that just like brought tears to my eyes, the power of that energy he was sharing. It just, and I'm covered in chicken skin, which is always like super powerful for me. And it's kind of funny because it's like when I opened up, I had chicken skin. And so it's like almost like I have chicken skin on the chicken skin because it just keeps getting intense and intense. It's super fun. Your soul's laughing at me. Like I always tell on myself when souls do something, your soul's laughing at me. But he says that there's so much work to be done here on Earth. And that in shedding what you've shed through this experience, some of what you're going to do is going to get easier because you're just going to laser through. And he says, but some of it will be harder because well, first off, he says sometimes it's hard to go through dense vibration, but it's also hard to bring in a message that people are not often ready for. And so he says that the challenges that you will face are not challenges you thought you would face, but challenges nonetheless. And he says, but it doesn't matter because when you are wholehearted in the purity of consciousness that you are able to hold in your heart, you will see with compassion.
Yeah.
And he says, compassion is as much love for the self as it is for the other. And so he says that you will, and then he showed me like a sun in your heart. And imagine the sun in your heart is spinning like a dial. And the way I see it is similar to the image behind you, and that it's not a solid color. It's made up of all these radiating colors. They're not that particular color scheme, but yellows, oranges, reds, blues, green, and it's all spinning. It's like a spinning dial, like almost like a shield that we would see from an ancient sun god's shield or something, and it's spinning in your heart, and that you have the capacity to actually this is not, I was going to say it's not automatic. What I'm trying to capture is that it's not something that is uncontrollable. Like you have the capacity to work with this, the sundial in your heart, and that this energy can, in a sense, move mountains. And it also feels like a portal to seeing dimensionally is the best way I can describe it, because he literally showed mountains move. So mountains to me, that can be literal mountain to mountains of energy. And then the next thing, as I was watching the dial spin, this sundial spin, was I could see through to some other level of consciousness, almost like looking through into another dimension. And he says, choose wisely, use wisely, that there's thoughtfulness about wielding this dial in your heart, and that he believes in you, and the initiation would not have occurred were you not ready. So every gift that you've received, you're ready for, even if it might feel like you're riding on a board for the first time, but he's like, you've got this, and you'll learn and grow, and your capacity to access these gifts will grow and grow and grow. So he says that this is the beginning, this is not the end, and he's super excited about the journey and being embodied in with you, and he's opening up to you for questions. So,
all right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Since it's on the similar topic and talking about this spinning sundial of the heart, and I guess you'll learn some of the details about the experience that I had on the mountain as we go through, as I kind of share these little bits and pieces. And so if anyone has questions about that experience as well as we're going, feel free to post them up there. But before going on this journey, I kind of discovered, I don't really know what to call it. It feels like a little reservoir of prana that is just a little bit above the tailbone. And I recognized that we are able to direct the energy of prana into this reservoir through our breath. I'm pretty sure we can do it from anything that we consume, food, water. Anyways, I was excited about this reservoir because I recognized that this is it seemed to reflect the knowledge that I had gained around Kriya yogis, Kundalini yogis, who are able to store up a vast amount of spiritual energy inside their bodies. And that allows for the processing of various stages in their development that they can use for different things. Anyways, I didn't think too much about it when I encountered this, but I saw the reservoir as this pool of golden orange-like energy. And when you breathe into it, I breathe in and I can feel the energy going into it. And when I breathe out, sometimes there's little bubbles that come up like a fountain inside it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I had some conscious control over it.
Mm-hmm.
And that it may be something that I could use for specific purposes consciously. Maybe an aspect of my body needs some more healing, or maybe I started using it in my yoga practice when I was feeling off balance. I would direct some of that energy into a particular limb that needed more support, and it would sort of instantly help me feel more balance, more groundedness, more strength. Anyways, I guess it's been 2 weeks now since the Lionsgate portal when I went up on the mountain. And after I had this sacred journey mystical experience, I noticed that this reservoir of energy had changed, and it was more like that dial of colors. And I saw it, I mean, we were talking about a bunch of stuff related to an energy field called the Kundalini, which is sort of the fields of energies that are connected by a rainbow bridge. So we had some rainbows on our minds during this journey. But when I was coming down the mountain, I saw that this pranic reservoir had changed colors, and that it was now a myriad of rainbow colors with sparkles and all this stuff. And when I use it, when I consciously direct it, it's very, it has a different quality. And I'm just really curious what the heck happened that caused it to change colors and have this quality shift.
Well, your soul is talking about a process. So, there were a bunch of little breadcrumbs, and that the way the soul comes into embodiment, it can be all at once, but often he's saying that it's a process. And so the more and more you access that sundial, the more and more you can understand that is literally your soul consciousness in your field. So working with you in physical embodiment. And that's what he's talking about, how the more you work with that soul consciousness, it's like, that's how I'm able to communicate with soul consciousness, because my soul over a period of years was a process of, coming into my physical vessel. So that's how I communicate, do soul communication, because my soul is in physical embodiment. So your soul is in physical embodiment through this dial. And he shows me that one of the things for you, it's not necessarily how you work with other people, but he shows me this dial spinning and how you can direct energy within the body. So the dial is spinning and I'm watching that, and it's like trails of energy go to different places in your body. So what he's saying is, for you, one thing that there's a lot of ways you can work and become more acquainted and aware with the soul presence within you. Mm. But one way is to notice how you can, when the dial is spinning and you're aware of it, how you can direct energy with it. So direct energy within yourself and then direct energy outside of yourself. And so your soul is saying that eventually you'll be holding a vibration for others to have experiences of elevated consciousness, because you're able to hold that. He says, I'm not saying that you're going to hold the vibration and other people's souls are going to come into their embodiment, but I am saying when you hold that, they will be able to access more and more and more of the truth of themselves within their own vessels. And so it's a gift for you to be able to experience soul consciousness in physical form, and it's a gift to collective consciousness, to individuals, that you are able to hold the vibration of soul consciousness in physical embodiment, which he says is not an easy task. This is not, he says in your world you have, people who have had Kundalini experiences that have changed, that they couldn't hold, and that, that caused them, an array of outcomes that humans don't always see as positive, if you will.
Yeah.
He says, we don't want to force anyone beyond what they are capable of, but he says that holding a vibration that allows for the natural expansion within what they're ready for is a very powerful experience, both for you. And he's talking about how you're going to experience prana differently over time, so that you'll have a different experience of prana. And he's showing me, like, an old-fashioned thermometer with the mercury, how the mercury goes up and down, and you can tell the temperature. So, it's like by this, I try to give everything directly as it's given to me. Sometimes I get feelings in my body and I have to just describe the feeling in my body. And so as he was watching that, the red go up and down in the thermometer, what I could feel in my own body was my prana shifting. And so then from that, I got, I bet, so I'm hypothesizing this part. He's laughing at me again, that you will be able to feel in other people, or have some experience of their prana. And you'll be able to use that observational process, that awareness of the prana, not just in people, he says, but in plants and trees, in the earth, and everything that's living.
Yeah.
And that's such a gift. I mean, he's putting his hand on rocks, and you can actually feel the prana within, and that. And so he says, to some people that may seem like a very, not a big deal, but it really truly is a big deal. And he shows me that as you work with that capacity, it's almost like somebody being able to put their hand on a physical body and say, oh, you have blood running through your veins. And then somebody else going, oh, you have type O blood. Oh, your DNA has this. Oh, so that's this process of being able to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in to this, that's the, in a sense, I want to say the special sauce, like that this capacity is going to open up and open up. And now he's showing me a picture of a microscope, and I'm kind of looking through the microscope, and depending on how strong the microscope is how deep you can see into the cell formation, right? And so imagine doing that with your hand or your essence. And he then shows me another thing, the spinning dial, and you're standing in front of other people, and there's some kind of transmission with the spinning dial that other people will be able to feel, have some experience. I don't want to just use feel, but have some other experience of your soul energy. And that's a special. And he says that there's more awakening coming and that we can have continued conversations, but it's not to like stand at the front door and give you the roadmap to the back door. That, you know, it's to stand at the front door and experience what you're experiencing. And then as you open up more and more, we can have further, you know, conversations and talk about pragmatics and you know, how to engage with your soul energy and embodiment. But he's saying, have fun, enjoy this gift. And, you know, it's not all serious. There's playfulness about it. There's the sheer joy. And it reminds me of a kid at Christmas who, you know, gets something that they've wanted so, you know, with all of their heart, and they get it, and they, you know, it becomes the toy that they, you know, play with over and over and over with for years. He's like, this is a process, and it's to get to know it as intimately as you possibly can at each level, and to have fun and to not all be serious, because the world needs lightheartedness too, and joyfulness. And he just flashed me a picture of the Dalai Lama, which is a great example, right, of joyfulness and with a big task. You know,
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So,
any other questions or?
Yeah, I have some other questions. It's interesting how I have these questions that are very specific to the perspective that I have around the experience that I had, and how the answer, or so far, anyways, it's kind of like the answer that I already know, but don't usually perceive as an answer to the question. And it like puts me in this other space where those questions that arise from that particular perspective, like, what the heck just happened to me up there? You know, that it doesn't really seem very important anymore. But I do. There are a couple other questions I want to ask.
Cool.
And just for some contextual understanding, part of this journey on the mountain included a ceremonial plant medicine. And as I was experiencing the effects of this medicine, it's usually a fairly, in my experience with it in the past, it's been a fairly short experience, between maybe 10 and 30 minutes. But maybe around 15 minutes into my experience, I began speaking mantras that I have never heard before. And I spoke a long string of them for probably close to 45 minutes. And while that may sound unusual, the part about it that really was just felt like it was coming from another level was the energy that, like, I didn't know what the words were. I was feeling my way through this energy that said, you must speak this now. And I was finding with my mouth the sounds and the words, and sometimes it was just like garbledy, mushity goop, you know, trying to get this feeling into a sound expression. But throughout this period, there were a number of a variety of different mantras, and there would be periods where it was like this long thought of a 5-minute mantra would come to a conclusion. And then it would switch gears, and then the energy would shift, and then the sound of the words that I needed to say shifted, and the focus of how I was focusing energy shifted. So that's the context I want to share about the experience. I'm curious to hear about anything about this. Like, what was I saying? Why was I saying it? Why did I needed to say it? Like I had a very experienced spiritual journeyer, a master builder on the planet as a guide. And during my experience, at one point, he was attempting to have me drink water so that my body, my physical body, was receiving what it needed. And I literally couldn't turn off this flow of energy and the sound in order to drink the water until that energy came to its own natural close. And then from my own perspective, I could say, okay, I'm ready for some water now. Mm-hmm. And I would have maybe like 20 seconds, and then the next wave would come through. So I'm curious to hear.
So when I saw the dial, I'm looking at it face on, and I can see that it's all spinning. So when you started talking, I started hearing the sound. I can still hear it. I could sing this song for hours. And what he showed me was when I, imagine this is the dial and it's flat, but he turned it as a cross section, and it was like I could see all the different layers spinning, and you were singing the dials, if you will.
I see. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there was something about the space between the dials. So as I'm hearing so it's like the dials have a vibration, and then there's a vibration between the dials that is a different tone. And so you were singing, it reminds me of when I've been to the void, and I'm in the void, and then I'll start hearing Om very low, and then I'll see the Om sign move toward me, and it makes a vibration. And so it's a similar thing. It's like you were singing the sound of the vibration of the dial. It's beautiful. There is a different octave between the dials were, and then the between the dials is more at so it's a different frequency and tone.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
And you'll be able to continue to, your soul is showing me that in a meditative state, which does not necessarily mean sitting in lotus and, but in a meditative state of consciousness, you could be walking through a forest, and you'll want to voice the song of your sundial.
Yeah.
And it's really just, he says it's just a different way. Like you can beam it. Mm-hmm. You can connect with it internally in your consciousness, and you can sing the song of your dial. Like you can bring it into where people can hear it. Some people are going to hear it without you singing it. Right. And so they might, be like, I always hear things around you, like my ears ring around you, So some people will have an experience of that, whether you're voicing it or not, but you'll be often called to voice, sing the sound of, sing the vibration. He does say there's a transmission there. Whether you have the words or the sound, there is a transmission, just as if you're standing and in your in your own consciousness, there's you have your dial spinning, there's a transmission there. And there's a different kind of transmission when you sing the song of your dials, if you will. Or he says another way you can say it is sing the song of consciousness.
Yeah, interesting. One of the sounds that was that I was making as part of that experience was very similar to the multiphonic Tibetan toning, which I have actually no skill at doing.
Oh yeah, you do. He says, "Oh yeah, you do. You just think you don't. Stop saying you don't."
Well,
I just have this gift, he says. I just have this gift.
Yes. So it was a surprise to hear that sound coming out of me and to feel it in my body, because it's not something that I'm familiar with being able to do. And while it was happening, I was like, oh, I guess I can do multiphonics. So.
And you know, there's this place of, I'm not a musician. I have no training. I played the flute in 8th grade, you know, like,
Yeah.
But even when I'm singing light language, there's a place where a harmonic occurs, and it's hard to imagine how can one person make a harmonic sound. And that's what he's showing me, that there are these places of harmonic sound that how can one person make two tones that becomes a multi-dimensional third tone, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is sort of a technical question that now I'm curious about from what's come up is, are the discs, you know, you looked at these kind of this side view where you see the layering of it. What is the, I'm trying to think of the question, how to phrase the question that I have. The question is like, how do these discs relate to an identity of consciousness? Meaning, is the soul experience, I mean, part of me is aware that we come into an embodied incarnation and we have the opportunity to deliver our experiences to our soul's consciousness. Are these discs made up of this variety of experiences, sort of like maybe like what an embodied person would think of as saying like a past life template? Or are these discs made up of different aspects of consciousness that have very little to do with the incarnate experience?
Yeah, he says it has nothing to do with lifetimes. It's operating at soul level consciousness. He says that humans have this perception. He's showing me the grid that we talked about in one of the earlier things, that, you know, to get to 12 and beyond, is not possible in physical form. He says
Right.
that's a misnomer.
Right.
It's just whether you can perceive it in physical form. He says not everyone can perceive it in physical form. He says no judgment. Not everyone came here to perceive it in physical form. That we all have jobs, and we all came to explore something. Not everyone came to experience that. And he says that it's not an expression of physical embodiment. It is expression of the soul, he says part of what's going on is that I'm a human, and even though I can communicate at soul consciousness, it's I have to bring it through in words that we use as humans. I could do it in sound, and we could just
go totally out there, yeah.
right. But remember, I'm bringing through a non-physical expression through words we use in physical form. So he goes, there are other languages that other than English that I could do a better job, but she doesn't speak them.
Oh, that's so funny. And
but
do you think you can pick up on a name of one of those languages just for fun?
I've done it before, actually. So, that's happened in my reality. So, what he's saying is it's not anything that has been in physical form. And he says it is the true expression of the soul. And he says that we think about the soul as a dimensional expression, but it's not singularly, it's also multi-dimensional,
Right.
expression of the soul. And so he says the closest is to think about that each dial is part of the multi-dimensional expression of the soul. He says it's actually a harmonic of the soul.
Yeah, that's kind of really I have no idea what someone else would understand from our conversation, but what I'm really sort of receiving from this so far is the aspect of multidimensional consciousness and how it's really a kind of a different thing altogether from what at least I've been used to in my experience. Okay, I woke up today, I got some things to do, I'm going to go do them. This multi-consciousness is like, and to a certain extent I've always experienced deeper layers in the experience, my sort of three-dimensional experiences. When I do things or when I say things, there's usually multiple layers of meaning behind it. But this idea of this soul song having these different dimensions of layers, and if I'm correlating it correctly, my experience of the variety of energies that came through my body in this mystical experience, that I was able to, it was like the full spectrum from the most absolute ferocious energy I've ever experienced in my life to like intensely tender grief. And just thinking about having all of those access points at all times as a tool for creating my experience, that sounds like a pretty amazing experience to tap into, an amazing just possibility that is opening up. And like I read a lot of posts that people put on social media, people who are channeling angels, people who are just tapping into esoteric knowledge, all this kind of stuff, and talking about this ascension process that humanity is going through, this process of elevating the frequency of our consciousness, and talking about how multidimensional experience is the norm that we are moving in the direction of.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really feels like, you know, when I think about how it came through me, it was like, okay, now we're doing the Hosa. And I would just sit there going, Hosa, Hosa, like for 10 minutes or something. And then the energy would shift and it would go to something completely different. And the energy would feel really different. And I know that maybe singing out the song of the soul or speaking these sort of like spontaneous mantras that I don't have any mental connection to any meaning. I just have this feeling coming through in the sound that is to be spoken, to be sung, to be whatever. That multidimensionality is like working itself out in a timeline experience, which is a really kind of interesting way of thinking about communicating, where like to communicate a singular creative idea would actually require a period of time that is fairly drawn out in order to sequentially express all of the layers of what's coming through.
Yeah, he said a lot of things as you were talking, but one of the things he said was part of that vocal experience was you experiencing each of the wheels. And then he was talking about, imagine having full consciousness of all of it at once. And then he used
Sorry, go ahead.
He used the example of a Beethoven symphony. So imagine every note in a Beethoven symphony, and imagine in a moment knowing it all in one moment, every note, every harmony, every instrument, he says, then that kind of gives you a beginning understanding.
Yeah, I mean, the intensity of the energy was beyond, it felt beyond anything that I'd really ever encountered before. It was more massive and more powerful than anything I've ever imagined, and being able to experience through my body.
Well, and as a listener and a communicator with your soul, like I want to hear, that expression. So I look forward to you working with that and being with that and sharing that vibration with us all in whatever way you choose, whether you're beaming silently or you're actively working with our energy, or whether you're singing the song of your soul styles, all those dimensions. That's super, super exciting for all of us. And I know that as you do it for yourself, you do it for the collective. That's what he's showing me, that we're in a holographic world, so that when you sing the song of the dials, whether you're in your soul, sing the song of your soul, whether you do that in your mind, in your body, whether you do it literally or inside of yourself in consciousness, he says, always remember, you are bringing that vibration into the collective. And that's a gift.
Yeah, I've been thinking a great deal this year in particular about the most effective contribution that I can, as who I am, can make. Because, you know, I see there's so much work to do here and now. And I have my own perspective about, you know, what type of work I can do and what type of work I'm not really suited for. But what's been coming through very, very strongly is this idea that the work that we do for ourselves is like, that's the biggest thing that we can do.
Absolutely.
And so being able to, you know, when I'm watching, lately I've been thinking a great deal about, okay, how are people at various stages relating to an experience of the truth? You know, do they have a mainstream experience of the truth? Do they have an experience of the truth where they're witnessing all of these sort of like hidden agendas and evil intentions that exist in the world? Are they in a place where love and you know, a more elevated consciousness is the intention of helping others to rise up, no matter where they are on their path? And
Yes.
for me, when I'm watching, there's so many people in so many different places, and when people are interacting with each other, there are some people who are like, oh my God, if these people don't wake up yet, the world is gonna like perish. Some people are like, oh my gosh, stop picking on the people who aren't awake yet. And, you know, it sort of like goes on and on like that. And an idea that I've seen come up around a lot of spiritual coaches and different people who are taking the mantle to be a leader of their own particular perspective in the world, is that ensuring that your own internal process is part of whatever service you choose.
So big, right?
That like if you see a problem in the world, it's not necessarily your job to solve it, unless it's your problem too. You know, and when I think when more and more of us can engage in this process of like seeing like, okay, I'm experiencing some conflict in my life. If I can work on the aspects of myself that are contributing to that, that can be a source of service to the world, whether you're doing it intentionally as like your business plan, or you're doing it just for yourself because you want to stop having conflict. You want some peace. That's really where I'm landing lately with that whole idea.
Absolutely. I mean, every time we raise our own vibration, we're raising it for the collective. Bella, I'm so glad you joined us. Bella is one of my favorite people to work with because she asks amazing questions. Bella, are there any questions that you thought of that you'd like to ask John Soul, bring into, or any insights that you had as you were listening and doing the behind the scenes work?
For me, it's just amazing to be able to witness, and that we can do this with such transparency for everybody. And I saw some of the comments that people were making that were watching, that they could feel it like in the spine. And I was sitting here and I could also feel it. And especially when you made some of these sounds, like it just resonated in me. And I didn't know if it was pleasurable or if it was scary. But I know it was like, you know, I could feel there's something with this call today where the power of sound, like also in the sounding that you were doing, Simone, so there is something here with sound waves, and almost for me to kind of be on here but not be on here, because when I'm on here visually, I'm so visual, so I'm just concentrated in like what I see. And now that I was sitting backstage, I was like, the sound of it became, and I feel, I mean, that's the only thing I would say, that sometimes I think we are over focusing on the visuals, but we have five senses at least as human beings. And there's something so powerful with sound. And even I feel like not only sound the sound, but what you were saying, John, about you kind of heard like, I need to express this. There is something with the expression of sound too that I feel is coming in more like with kind of an urge of and it's almost like we are coming into that time now where manifestation comes from, like invocation, manifestation, and they are like direct. And before it feels like it wasn't that direct, but that's where we're going. So that's my reflection from backstage.
I love that too, and I just want to say that when I have clients all over the world, and when I'm doing soul communication, I don't, there are clients who want to look at me, and I'm like, I'm usually like this, I like not having the visual because I am more present with their soul and the vibrations that are coming through, and I don't get, distracted by looking at somebody on the camera. So it's cool.
We do have a question, and it's from Kelly about, so maybe I'll just bring it up so that we do, since we asked for questions, we want to bring them.
So Kelly asks, I had a question about the sundial. What's the relationship between the soul and each of the dials? Are they correlated to lifetimes? No, the soul says that it's not, the dials are not related to anything that has been in a human embodiment. It's really an expression of soul consciousness. And some people understand that there are 12 layers of consciousness. So what John Soul says, this is 12 layer of consciousness and beyond. So that's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. So it's an expression of the soul from 12 level consciousness beyond. So it's crystalline and beyond. And it's the harmonic of the soul. So that's a good question, Kelly. Thank you for asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the, and this is a great comment as well, I read already, but I wanted to just mention about Bella's comment about the sound and some of the responses from those who are watching, is that I mentioned it early in our conversation, but didn't really elaborate on it very much. But part of the journey and the ceremony with the mountain was, our guide wanted me to be able to witness an aspect of this energy that is currently present on the planet that we could call the Rainbow Bridge. The Rainbow Bridge is essentially a frequency pathway that allows for the manifested presence of the new Earth, as people are talking about it, the fifth dimensional planetary reality, the creation of heaven on Earth as one, not as separate entities. And what that Rainbow Bridge is connecting to is beyond that 12th dimensional structure of our universe, and is called the Kunda Ray. And the Kunda Ray is in every Genesis story or creation story, regardless of whether it's tied to a religion or a tradition around the planet, oftentimes when the beginning is mentioned, when the beginning of all things is mentioned, there is sound and there is light.
Mm-hmm.
And the kundere is essentially the sound fields, the fields of sound, which are that aspect of creation. And, you know, Bella mentioning like, here's an invocation and now here's manifestation. It's giving us a new experience of the truth of sound. That sound is a pure creator. That we can speak into reality the truth of what it is that we desire to create. And, people that are engaging in law of attraction or whatever process of learning how to be a spiritual manifester, when you begin to incorporate sound, using those sound fields is very, very powerful. And we're seeing even from a large society perspective, large groups of people are standing up to speak their truth, regardless of how other people perceive that truth.
Oh, right.
Politically speaking, in the United States, there are people who are at absolute opposite ends of their value systems. And they're both speaking loudly about their own perception of the truth. So this is all like, whether you're going up to the mountain to like do this sort of mystical journey stuff, or you're just connecting to expressing yourself, or you're connecting to writing down what it is that you want to create, or speaking it out loud in some form of a ceremony or something like that. I'm just really feeling like, and even in the description of soul embodiment is very, very, it was very steeped in the essence of vibration in sound. That it's, and Simone, I didn't mention this, when you started making the sounds of the layers, there was an aspect of the journey where I completely forgot I had a body, like no connection whatsoever to my body, to the planet, anything. And yes, it was terrifying, Bella, actually, when you said, like, I don't know if it feels good or if it's terrifying. It was terrifying for me. But then there would be this other side to it where it was incredibly pleasurable as well. But what brought me back to my body was I heard the sound. I heard that song. My body said out loud, "What's that sound?"
Yes.
Because I didn't recognize it. And when I got back into my body, I said, "Oh, wow, that sound is my voice. That's my voice that I was hearing." And that's when all the stuff started coming out of my mouth,
So a couple of things. I know we're just a little more than an hour, so we need to wind up here soon. But a couple of things. The whole time I was seeing the wheel, I kept hearing Ezekiel saw the wheel. So you bring in those biblical messages, to eyes. And I have to say it now because it was happening the whole time. And then also your soul says that we have the capacity to do a sound architecture of the soul. It would be the sound episode. And,
awesome.
And I've done this before. I done healing around the U.S. with a dear friend of mine, Yukiya Sanandara, and we just, she starts singing. I usually wait for her to start, and then we just start singing. And it's a harmonic that comes through, and I was hearing us sing the song of the soul together. So I propose that our next episode be a sound song of the soul, and we see what happens. And What do y'all think?
Awesome. I love that idea.
I can't wait.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you to John Rhodes Soul he's just laughing now. He's like, just imagine the sound of laughter in the void. And that's what it sounds like to me. I'm just saying thank you, John Soul, for that, the parting laughter. I love that. And sound vibration. And thank you so much. And I disconnect from the soul of John Rhodes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and watch out for our postings for our episode 7, which will be the sound episode. Until then, take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.